Michael Jackson didn't just break records, he broke the system they relied on. At the height of his fame, he was arguably the most famous person on the planet. But with that level of superstardom came something unexpected. He made a lot of powerful people nervous. Why would the king of pop, a man adored by millions, spark fear among Hollywood elites, music industry bosses, and even political figures? The answer is a dark, tangled tale of money, influence, and the lengths people go to maintain power. Stick around, because what happened behind the scenes of Michael's life is as shocking as any thriller. And it all starts with how Michael changed the game from the very beginning. Breaking barriers and unprecedented fame. In the early 1980s, Michael Jackson's rise was insanely fast. By the age of 24, he wasn't just a famous singer anymore, he was everywhere. His album Thriller wasn't just popular, it was dominating the world and went on to become the best-selling album of all time. His music videos played non-stop, his songs were unavoidable, and his face became instantly recognizable across countries and cultures. But what really shook the industry was what he did to MTV. Before Michael, MTV almost never played videos by black artists. Then Billie Jean came along. Michael was so big that his record label basically told MTV, "You either play this video or you lose all our artists." MTV gave in. They put Michael on rotation, their ratings exploded, and history changed. Think about that for a second. A young black artist from Gary, Indiana, forced one of the biggest TV networks in America to change its rules. That kind of influence wasn't normal, and powerful people noticed. By the mid-1980s, Michael wasn't just a pop star anymore. He was meeting presidents, royalty, and world leaders. In 1984, he was invited to the White House and personally thanked by President Reagan, something almost no entertainer experienced at that time. Michael had become a symbol of American culture around the world. His influence was massive, and more importantly, it was independent. Record executives, promoters, and even politicians realized something uncomfortable. Michael Jackson couldn't be controlled easily. He had leverage. Millions of fans trusted him, followed him, and believed in him. He understood his image, his power, and his value. Michael wasn't just showing up and performing anymore. He was calling shots. He was setting terms. And if that already made powerful people uneasy in the early years, they had no idea what was coming next. Michael was only warming up. Owning the music industry's crown jewels, most pop stars were happy just being famous. Michael Jackson wasn't. He wanted control. In 1985, when he was already the biggest star on the planet, he made a move that shocked the entire music industry. He bought the ATV music catalog, which included most of the Beatles' songs. Yes, those Beatles. Michael had learned how valuable music publishing really was after talking with Paul McCartney. Then he went out and outbid everyone, including Paul himself, and bought the catalog for about $47 million. At the time, that number was huge. This wasn't normal. The industry had never seen a young artist do something like this. Overnight, Michael wasn't just a singer anymore. He was a businessman, a power player. He didn't just own his own songs, he owned the songs of other legends. From the perspective of old-school record executives, this was crazy. A 27-year-old performer now controlled music like Hey Jude and hundreds of other classic tracks. That kind of power made people uncomfortable. But Michael didn't stop there. Owning the catalog gave him leverage, and he used it in ways the industry didn't expect. For decades, many black artists had been cheated out of their publishing rights. Little Richard was one of them. When Michael realized that some of Little Richard's early songs were part of the catalog he owned, he quietly gave those rights back to him. No press tour, no headlines, just respect. Michael had paid millions for those songs and still chose to return them. To corporate executives, this was almost rebellious. Artists weren't supposed to help other artists. They were supposed to stay in line and make money for the system. Michael wasn't playing by those rules. He was using his power differently. And that's when the fear really started. Michael was no longer just famous. He had real power in an industry traditionally controlled by older, wealthy executives. Through his partnership with Sony, he owned half of one of the most valuable publishing companies in the world. That meant he effectively controlled music by the Beatles, Elvis, and many others. People behind the scenes didn't like that. Michael was supposed to be an employee, not a boss. Clash with corporate giants. By the early 2000s, Michael Jackson's relationship with Sony Music was falling apart fast. On paper, everything looked fine. Sony released his albums, and together they owned one of the most valuable music catalogs in the world. But behind the scenes, Michael believed something was very wrong. After his 2001 album Invincible didn't get the promotion he expected, he became convinced Sony wanted the album to fail on purpose. In his mind, this wasn't bad luck, it was strategy. Michael believed Sony executives were trying to break him financially and emotionally, so he would give up his share of the music catalog, which by then was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He openly said Sony was sabotaging his career to force him to walk away from his song rights. To Michael, this was payback. He felt the label was angry because he refused to sell what he owned. Instead of handling this quietly, Michael did something no superstar had ever done before. He went public. In July 2002, standing beside Reverend Al Sharpton at an event in Harlem, Michael exploded. He didn't just criticize the music industry in general, he named names. He directly called out Sony's CEO at the time, Tommy Mottola. In front of cameras and fans, Michael described Mottola as mean, racist, and very, very devilish.
Tommy Mottola is the president of the record division. He is he's a racist.
He accused Sony of exploiting artists, especially black artists, and said the system was rotten from the top. This was unheard of. A global icon openly attacking the boss of his own record label was pure rebellion, and Michael didn't stop there. That same summer, he took his protest to the streets of New York. Riding on top of a double-decker bus packed with fans, Michael held up a poster of Tommy Mottola with devil horns drawn on his head. Imagine turning on the news and seeing the world's biggest pop star publicly mocking you like that. Michael was sending a clear message. The industry wasn't clean, and he wasn't scared anymore. Why did this shake so many people? Because Michael wasn't just venting, he was exposing how the business worked. He said executives never expected him to understand contracts, ownership, or power. He claimed they underestimated him. He warned fans not to let the industry get away with what it was doing behind closed doors. Then he dropped the real bomb. Michael reminded everyone that he owned half of Sony's publishing business. He said he was leaving the company, and Sony was furious about it. According to him, the revenge was simple: destroy the album. And then he said the line that echoed everywhere: good art never dies. And finally, Tommy Mottola is a devil. The reaction was immediate. Sony rushed to deny everything, calling Michael's accusations ridiculous and damaging. The industry split. Some executives defended Mottola. Others quietly sided with Michael. And then something unexpected happened. Within months, Tommy Mottola stepped down as CEO of Sony Music. Officially, it was to start a new venture, but many believe the public feud played a role. Michael had done the impossible. He rattled one of the biggest corporations in music. He proved that even the most powerful executives could be shaken when an artist with global influence stopped playing nice. And if the industry wasn't nervous about Michael Jackson before, they definitely were now. But the biggest fight of his life wasn't happening in boardrooms. It was coming next, inside a courtroom, and it would test him like nothing ever had. Legal battles and powerful adversaries. While Michael was fighting massive battles in the business world, another fight was happening at the same time. This one hit much deeper. It threatened his freedom, his image, and his entire legacy. In 1993, right when Michael was at the peak of his fame, serious accusations about his personal life suddenly surfaced. A young boy accused him of inappropriate behavior. The media went into full attack mode. Headlines exploded. News channels ran nonstop coverage. Michael denied everything. The case never went to a criminal trial and was settled in civil court, but the damage was immediate. Overnight, the world's biggest superstar was no longer just a performer. He became a target. Many people around Michael questioned the timing. He had just reached a level of power and independence no artist had ever achieved. And suddenly, a scandal appeared that threatened to destroy him. There's no proven evidence that it was planned or set up, but the impact was real. His momentum slowed, his public image cracked, and he became vulnerable in a way he never had been before. One person who refused to let the situation die was Santa Barbara County District Attorney Tom Sneddon. If there was anyone who seemed determined to bring Michael down, it was him. After the 1993 case collapsed and no charges were filed,
We're here to announce, as you probably all know by now, that we've filed formal charges, a felony criminal complaint against Mr. Jackson.
Sneddon didn't move on. He kept investigating, year after year. For nearly a decade, he waited. Then in 2003, new accusations surfaced from another boy who had spent time at Neverland Ranch. Sneddon immediately went all in. He filed multiple charges and personally led a large police raid on Michael's home. Cameras were everywhere. Michael was handcuffed and paraded in front of the media. It was humiliating. And it was exactly the image many people wanted the world to see. During this period, Michael felt completely hunted, not just accused, but chased. He repeatedly said he was innocent and claimed powerful forces were trying to destroy him. Years earlier, he had even recorded a song called DS, which many believed was aimed directly at Sneddon. The lyrics were barely disguised. It was Michael saying, "I see what you're doing." By 2005, the situation reached its breaking point. Michael Jackson was on trial, facing the possibility of spending decades in prison. It felt like the entire system was lined up against him. The trial itself was brutal. Every day was a media circus. The prosecution brought up old accusations, new witnesses, and every damaging detail they could find. The goal was clear: destroy Michael's image completely. But his defense team pushed back hard, and after months of testimony, the case collapsed. In June 2005, the jury cleared Michael of every single charge, not guilty on all counts. Michael broke down in tears. Legally, it was a massive win, but emotionally, physically, and financially, he was drained. His reputation in the US was badly damaged, and years away from music had taken a serious toll. After the trial, more details came out that made people question the whole situation. Michael's lead attorney later said Tom Sneddon had a personal vendetta against him. Sneddon's behavior stood out. He traveled internationally looking for evidence. He personally joined raids. It often felt personal, not professional. Sneddon denied any bias, but many people weren't convinced. Michael himself felt deeply persecuted. At one point, he compared what was happening to him to how powerful black leaders had been targeted in the past. To outsiders, that may have sounded extreme, but in Michael's mind, he believed he was being punished for having influence, for owning his work, and for refusing to play by the rules. One detail that shocked many people came out during the trial. The FBI had been quietly involved in Michael's case for years. From the early 1990s through the 2005 trial, they assisted local authorities behind the scenes. That alone tells you how seriously he was being watched. But here's the part most people don't talk about. After years of investigation, the FBI found no evidence of criminal wrongdoing. When their files were later released, they confirmed that nothing incriminating was ever uncovered. Think about that. Media attacks, corporate pressure, legal warfare, federal investigations, and yet no conviction. Michael survived it all in court, but surviving doesn't mean escaping unharmed. By the time the trial ended, he was free, but exhausted, financially strained, and deeply cautious about the world around him. And hanging over all of it was the same issue that had followed him for years. The thing many believed was the real prize all along: his music catalog. Conspiracies and the catalog's fate. Throughout everything Michael went through, one thing always stood at the center of it all: his music catalog. This wasn't just a collection of songs. It was a massive empire that included music from the Beatles, Elvis Presley, and Michael's own biggest hits. Michael believed this catalog made him a target. In a 2005 interview, he openly said he felt there was a conspiracy to take control of it.
I don't want to say too much. I'm done. I don't want to say much because I'm hurting. I'm really hurting.
And when you look at the situation, you can understand why he felt that way. Despite the scandals, the legal battles, and being millions of dollars in debt by the mid-2000s, Michael refused to sell his share of the catalog. To him, it wasn't just business. It was his legacy. It was his safety net. He understood how valuable music ownership really was, and he knew that over time its value would only grow. History proved him right, but the pressure around him kept increasing. After the trial, Michael's financial problems became serious. To stay afloat, he had to borrow large amounts of money, using his 50% stake in the Sony ATV catalog as collateral. Behind the scenes, complicated deals were made to keep him financially stable. Each deal slowly pushed that prized catalog closer to corporate control. It started to feel like a long game. If they couldn't destroy Michael directly, maybe they could drain him financially until he was forced to give up the one thing he cared about most in business. Michael never sold his stake while he was alive. But what happened after his death is what raises eyebrows. On June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson died suddenly under tragic and controversial circumstances. The world mourned. Fans were heartbroken. But behind the scenes, the business machine moved fast. Michael's music immediately shot back to the top of the charts, and the catalog he fought so hard to protect became the most valuable asset in the industry. In the years that followed, Michael's estate, managed by lawyers and executors, began making massive deals. And the biggest one involved Sony. The same company Michael had publicly accused and battled moved quickly to take full control of the catalog. By 2016, Sony bought the remaining 50% stake from the Jackson estate for around $750 million. Just like that, the Beatles songs and everything else were fully under Sony's control. The company Michael once said was trying to take his catalog ended up owning it completely. And it didn't stop there. Even in 2023 and 2024, reports surfaced that the estate was negotiating new deals involving Michael's remaining music rights, including his master recordings. The numbers were staggering. Valuations between $1 and $1.5 billion were being discussed. These figures showed just how valuable Michael's work remained decades later. All of this makes people ask a simple question. When Michael said his catalog was the real target, was he wrong? Looking at how everything unfolded, many believe his fears were not unreasonable after all. The story still forces uncomfortable questions about power. Legacy of a star who shook the elite. Michael Jackson's story is a warning the entertainment industry still hasn't fully learned from.
The Michael Jackson who, at one time, was the #1 pop star in the world.
It raises a simple but uncomfortable question. What happens when an artist becomes more powerful than the people who are supposed to control them? Michael didn't just ask that question. He lived it. He took control of his music, his business, and his image in ways no artist had done before. And by doing that, he opened the door for others. Today, when artists fight to own their masters, you can trace that mindset back to Michael. Whether it's Prince protesting his label or Taylor Swift re-recording her albums, that fight started long before it became popular. Michael was one of the first artists to say, "I'm not just the product, I own myself." That changed everything. But his story is also a warning because of what came next. The pushback was brutal. The press turned on him and spent years mocking him, branding him with nicknames and turning his private life into a joke. Behind closed doors, deals were made that worked against him. In courtrooms, he faced legal pressure that nearly destroyed him. Was it all part of one giant secret plan? Probably not. But once Michael became a threat to the usual power structure, a lot of influential people suddenly had reasons to take him down. Each one acted in their own way. Prosecutors chasing headlines, media companies selling scandal, executives protecting money and control. Through all of it, Michael stayed Michael. He wasn't perfect. He was damaged. He was tired. But he was also stubborn, creative, and unwilling to surrender. Even when he was pushed out of the industry's inner circle, he was still planning comebacks and negotiating deals on his own terms. And in the end, his music and cultural impact couldn't be erased. The same companies that once fought him ended up making billions from his work. There's something bitter about that. But there's also truth in it. It proves how valuable he really was. Look at how his warnings about the industry sound today. Back in the early 2000s, many people laughed when Michael talked about racism, exploitation, and dirty business behind the scenes. He was dismissed as paranoid or dramatic. Now those same topics are openly discussed. Artists regularly speak about unfair contracts, stolen ownership, and labels taking advantage of young talent. These conversations weren't common when Michael was at his peak. In many ways, he was simply saying things too early. Time eventually proved that many of his concerns were real. For Hollywood and music executives, Michael's legacy is uncomfortable. On one side, he made them enormous amounts of money. Even after his death, his catalog continues to generate billions. On the other side, he inspired artists to question authority and demand control. That idea scares executives. Every time an artist cites Michael as a business inspiration, not just a musical one, power shifts slightly away from corporations and back toward creators. And beyond the industry, Michael's influence reached politics and society. He wasn't a traditional activist, but his impact was undeniable. He broke racial barriers, donated millions to charity, and used his platform to talk about global issues like disease, hunger, and unity. He had relationships with world leaders and influence that crossed borders. This was a man who could arrive in a country and shut down cities just by showing up. That kind of influence doesn't go unnoticed by governments or institutions. When someone has that much control over public emotion, people in power pay attention. So when Michael spoke about injustice or hinted that powerful systems were working against him, it naturally made some people uncomfortable. So did Michael Jackson win, or did the people he fought ultimately win? The honest answer is both. Michael reached levels of creative and financial success no artist had ever touched. He exposed truths about the music business that can't be hidden anymore, and he remains loved across generations. That never disappeared. But the cost was high. His health declined. His finances went up and down. His final years were filled with stress and isolation. Meanwhile, many of the people who opposed him kept their positions, their money, and their comfort. One thing is certain: Michael Jackson's legacy still causes noise. News about his music, his estate, or his life still sparks debate instantly. It's like he's still uncontainable, even after death. Some people defend him no matter what. Others refuse to see him positively at all, and those arguments are still intense. That level of division usually belongs to people who truly disrupted the system. Michael didn't just entertain the world, he challenged power, and that's why his story refuses to stay quiet. Michael Jackson made powerful people nervous for one simple reason. He refused to stay in his place. He didn't want to just perform, get paid, and stay quiet. He became a businessman, spoke his mind, and fought to own his work when most artists were expected to obey. Every time he pushed back, executives, lawyers, and media bosses felt their control slipping. That scared them. His story shows the real battle between creativity and power. Michael proved you can challenge huge systems, but they will push back hard. His biggest fights weren't on stage. They were behind closed doors. Decades later, his message still lives, and that may be his greatest victory.